All right, welcome back to the final part of the State of Gaming podcast E3 special. We're going to wrap up with discussions on Square Enix, Bethesda, and Devolver. Let's start with Square Enix.
All right, so I think just right off the bat, the one thing we're going to see is the least exciting, but something we're ready to see is some Final Fantasy 15 DLC based on different characters. There's even talk about multiplayer. I don't know how they're going to do that, and it's been a while since the game's been out and we haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is Square Enix's opportune time to kind of show that off.
Yeah, it seems like the right time. Like, it's been out long enough that it won't feel like it's too soon. You know, like, most people who would be interested in DLC have probably already beaten the game or at least played enough of it that they're close to it. So yeah, I think there's a good chance that we'll see something.
Yeah, I mean
DLC related.
Nothing crazy. We just have the different characters in the online, and even the VR thing. They haven't released that yet, but we're waiting on it. We might even see. It's been a while since the Rise of Tomb Raider came out. Maybe it's time we see a new Tomb Raider.
Sure, yeah, maybe.
Possible. And I think even Crystal Dynamics, they may show us the new Avengers game, but I think that might be a ways off. Maybe they want to coincide the release of that with Infinity War. But we also this is the real reason everyone wants to look at Square Enix is because of Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy 7 Remake. But latest news we got, I think, just in this last week was that they're not releasing either of them, and they said within the next 3 years, they said in about 3 years, something around that, which is just so long, and we barely even seen Kingdom Hearts 3, and it's going to be 3 years.
It makes you wonder why they announced it so many, like, what, 3 years ago or everything, or at least 3 years ago.
At least 2 years ago.
Where we had there was an announcement of it, but it was at such the beginning stages of its development. You wonder why, like, they could have saved it, and then maybe this year they would have been the one where, like, oh, this is happening, by the way, and then just blow everyone away, and then be like, oh, it's only 3 years away from now, as opposed to, oh, you're going to basically be waiting almost 5-6 years to see a game after it's announced.
There's only one reason I'm hoping that they did that, and that reason is that maybe they got the license for Star Wars. I'm hoping that they got license for Star Wars in their games. Maybe they're even incorporating Marvel. Maybe.
And it is possible at
Disney,
this point, you know.
Like, maybe they're just changing things up because they're like, oh, maybe we should add in the Guardians of the Galaxy world. I'd freak my...
Yeah,
oh my God,
they could really take what is already a out there franchise and just literally throw it out there, you know. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, if they do that for Kingdom Hearts, that can make that game really, like, something else. But for the Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's more like, why announce it so early? Especially it's a remake of a game, you know, and everything they've been talking about since then, how it's going to be, like, kind of divided up into, like, separate games. I don't know. Like, I think they should show something just because I think some people are starting to lose hope in it. You know what I mean? Like, there was all that hype right at the beginning, and now it's kind of everything we've heard since then, and the fact that we haven't really seen anything, it's kind of like going to die down a bit. So maybe another trailer, some more information, a rough release date, just to get people excited. For
a year.
Again. Yeah.
But they also I think just a couple days ago or even today, they mentioned that they're shifting from external development to internal development. So now Square Enix themselves are working directly on the remake, which is good news because that means that they're going to be like, there's a higher bar for quality, and there's also probably faster production time. I don't know how fast at this point, but at least I can hope.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, I mean, aside from that, we have nothing else really confirmed from Square Enix. Nothing super important, nothing looming over us that we can even speculate about right now.
Maybe Nier DLC.
Yeah.
I mean, they released that kind of like joke DLC where the outfits and you can fight the CEO of Square Enix and Yoko Taro and everything. And I know they never really confirmed, and we're kind of implying it wouldn't be story DLC. Maybe because it's been successful, maybe they will be. I know I'd love to see something like that just pop up. Like, oh, by the way, here's some story DLC and maybe some more background on some characters or some kind of epilogue. Besides that, I can't think of much else that would show up under Square Enix.
I know that there's the Dragon Quest games that are showing up on the 3DS, and Dragon Quest 11's on 3DS and PS4, so we might see some of that.
Yeah.
Dragon Quest 10 on Switch.
Who knows?
Either way, like, I think Square Enix has a lot of time on their hands to show us some cool stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of a lot of time to show us cool stuff, Bethesda. Yeah. Because right now Bethesda has things they can show us, and none of it is boring.
Yeah.
That's the way Bethesda's conferences usually are. They're short, they're
Yeah.
condensed, and they're just look at all this cool stuff.
Yeah. So far, their two conferences have definitely been highlights of the show, especially the first one with all the hype around Fallout. But even the second one, like they really went all out with it.
Releasing Prey and Dishonored 2. I think the least interesting thing we're going to see is probably DLC for Dishonored 2 and Prey, because those games they don't have any DLC announced for them, and I think they could probably use some. I know that they did it with Dishonored 1. They probably could afford to do it with Dishonored 2 and Prey.
For sure.
So we might see some of that. I think everyone is really ready to see Wolfenstein: The New Colossus based off of that, that Easter egg on the last trailer for it was for Quake Champions.
Yeah.
And I think after everyone caught that, everyone's just waiting now.
It's just assumed now that that's going to happen now.
Yeah,
like why would you tease it a whole year ago and then not show it? So yeah, I think that's basically a guaranteed aspect of their conference.
I think it's sort of creating a cycle that, like the Fallout Skyrim cycle is now happening between with Wolfenstein and Doom. Yeah. So it's going to be 1 year we're going to get Wolfenstein, then we're going to get Doom, Wolfenstein, Doom, kind of like how it works.
Definitely, I mean, and I doubt we'll see it, but a new Doom game would definitely...
Well, we are getting a new Doom game, technically.
Yeah, technically, VR version of Doom, same with Fallout 4.
Yeah.
Which could also be really, really interesting, because now we're seeing a game that... like a real game, if you want, not a VR gimmicky game, if you want to put it bluntly, and see how that, especially Doom, if Doom adapts well to VR, then that could really start opening the way, because at this point now with VR, it's still very much in its kind of infancy stages, kind of going through some growing pains, because there really isn't that game that's just like selling you on VR being more than just a fun distraction, like until the point where I can play full-fledged deep games.
There's only one so far. There's Resident Evil 7.
Yeah,
that's it.
But even then, like, a game is not simple, but like it's very basic in the way it's structured. Like you move around, you have some basic weapons and stuff. But like something like Fallout, which has all this crafting stuff and dialogue, even though it's not that great compared to other games, but a game like that working in VR, that could be interesting.
Open world too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really excited to see what they're doing with it. Also, I don't know how they're gonna do the pricing, because if you already have Fallout 4, do you have to buy Fallout 4 again? Same with Doom, or do you get a discounted version if you already have it, or is it just cheaper?
Yeah, I guess it depends how much it's going to cost them to convert it to be VR compatible.
I'm a bit worried about that, because I don't know if I'd want to buy Fallout 4 again, or if is it going to be compatible with my save. I'm a little nervous about that, but
I certainly wouldn't buy Fallout 4 again. But that's
yeah,
for
well,
other
I mean,
reasons.
in VR, even if you didn't like Fallout 4, I feel like even Fallout 4 in VR would be pretty damn cool.
I would definitely get Doom first.
Doom.
Doom in VR. Yeah, I'd play that.
Sick a bit, but yeah, I mean, I love the game a lot, so sure, I'll take it for VR at this point. I'll take what I can get. All right, so now, the other game that I'm hoping for, that there's been speculation for, was Evil Within 2. There's Tango Softworks with Shinji Mikami, who's also one of my favorite game developers. He worked on Resident Evil 4 and God Hand, and the original Evil Within. Now we're sort of anticipating a possible sequel with Evil Within 2.
Yeah.
It's either that or some other horror game. And, I mean, personally, I don't mind whether it's Evil Within 2 or anything else, as long as it's horror. But I did really like Evil Within 1 just because of the atmosphere, and it did a lot of things right for horror.
Mm-hmm.
It needed some improvement here and there, especially with a lot of the narrative components, but I feel like the DLC that they added was so solid that it actually fleshed out a lot of the narrative itself. Yeah. And I think that now they'd be in a good place for a sequel, because the story was a bit open-ended, and it led us to believe there would be a sequel of some form. Either way, I don't know what it'll be. I'm very excited to see some more horror coming out of Bethesda, because they have a very high quality expectation for their games. So aside from that, like you know about this a bit more than I do, but Bethesda's got some new IPs.
Yeah, well, we know Todd Howard has talked about that they're working on 2 new games, still kind of in the similar style as Fallout or Elder Scrolls, but that are supposedly bigger than both of those games combined, or something ridiculous like that, and that are different. So, and they've been talking about this quite a bit, at least the last 2 years since Fallout 4. And while their lineup so far does look good, it doesn't have that surprise. You know, even within Wolfenstein VR DLC, this is all stuff we're expecting, and I'm sure we'll see also some new stuff for Elder Scrolls Online and the Elder Scrolls card game. But if they really want, you know, to keep up their streak of really being game of the show of the best conference in the show, they either need to announce like full reveal one of these IPs, or at least tease both of them, or reveal one of them, and or even if it's the smallest of things, a small tease, maybe even just a confirmation of the setting for the next Elder Scrolls.
Oh my god. If they do anything, they just say it. If they just put like 6.
Yeah, Elder Scrolls 6, Valenwood, or elsewhere, or wherever, like just that, just to get people running with ideas, you know? Like, I know we're not going to see like a trailer or anything, because the game, there's no way the game's going to come.
It's a ways off.
Yeah, and we know they don't announce games until like the year they're coming out,
yeah.
And there's no way it's coming out this year. But if they could just tease it, maybe
VR,
like
full game in VR.
Yeah, something like that, or maybe they'll do a tease like what they did with Wolfenstein, just kind of just mention it like in its own secret kind of way without actually fully announcing it, because it's still a ways off.
Cool.
But I think it's more likely that we'll get some information on one or both of these IPs, and that's really interesting, because all of this that all Tall Towers team has done for like 2 decades is Elder Scrolls mostly, and then Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. So if they're doing something different, really kind of branching out, and like I just want to know what the setting of these games is. Is it still going to be that same open world structure, but like in a modern setting, or in like a sci-fi, but that's not post-apocalyptic setting? You know, like
I'm down for both of those.
Like we said before, a Star Wars Bethesda styled game. Like I know they won't do it because EA's got the rights to Star Wars, but a sci-fi game nonetheless in that kind of setting could be really interesting. So yeah, I'd be very disappointed if we don't see some kind of announcement for something we don't know about already.
Yeah, me too. I think every conference needs to have that surprise.
At least one thing, even if it's just a trailer like that doesn't really show much. Just okay, we know this exists now. We have a base idea of what it is and where it takes place.
Yeah, for sure. I want to see some of that. I really do think that we need some surprises from every conference, and I think Bethesda really has the power to do that.
And they have them there. We know they have them. It's just whether or not they're ready to be shown.
Like even if it's a little tease.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that brings us to Devolver. So Devolver has been recently picking up steam as a really good indie publisher lately in the past few years, and they're responsible for Serious Sam. And we might even see some new Serious Sam stuff. They've been doing a lot of VR with Serious Sam lately.
Yeah.
They remade 1 and now 2, and there's also a special VR exclusive game. So I mean, Devolver's kind of messing around with that, but they also have some other indie games that they're publishing that I feel like need more attention. One of them is Crossing Souls, which they very briefly covered at E3 2 years ago, and it was just in a little montage sequence, and it looked so cool. It looked kind of like a kind of contemporary remake of Earthbound, and it had some action elements, and it looked kind of like an 80s cartoon, 80s Sunday morning cartoon, Saturday morning cartoon. It looked really interesting, and we haven't heard much from it. I've been trying to follow it online. It was kickstarted, and now it's just sort of kind of there's a bit the information is few and far between. I think we need an update, and Devolver having their own show is no better time than now to show us that. Exact same thing with Eider, which is like an isometric Dark Souls, which looks a bit like it takes some inspiration from Norse mythology. You look a bit like you're fighting with Vikings, giant Vikings, stabbing dead pigs. I don't really know what that was about, but I'm sure it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
It looks really good. It looks like it takes a lot of inspiration from Dark Souls, and anything that takes inspiration from Dark Souls is usually really good.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say usually. So there's a couple bad ones. Aside from that, there's like Serious Sam I was talking about. They're making some indie version of Serious Sam called Serious Sam's Bogus Detour. I'm not super intrigued by that because there have been a few other Serious Sam indie games that were not fantastic. So I mean, I'll keep my eye on it, but I'm not enamored with it. The one that I am enamored with is called Ruiner, which is sort of like it's like a 3D engine running from top down, and it plays kind of like Hotline Miami and a twin stick shooter. I don't know too much about it aside from the fact that its aesthetic is incredibly badass, and I'm dying to see more. Honestly, Devolver in the past few years has really killed it with their indie games, and I think they'll continue to knock it out of the park. They must, because they just got their own E3 conference. So I'm really excited to see how that goes.
Yeah. And just to make a quick reference, there's also the PC gaming show.
Right.
Maybe we'll see some more from Pillars of Eternity 2 there, because it's Kickstarter, or not Kickstarter, it's a Fig campaign, because it's not Kickstarter,
Right. Yeah.
different website. Ended relatively recently, so maybe we'll get some more information on that.
I would expect to see Pillars of Eternity.
And who knows? Maybe Lord Gaben will grace ourselves with his presence
say
to
it.
destroy. Well, I have to say it. Until it happens, I cannot discuss E3 without mentioning the possibility that the world will end and Half-Life 3 will be announced in some capacity.
The thing is, he can't even show up to E3 without that expectation being there. If he's there, they're like,
yeah,
he's gonna do it.
He can't be here for any other reason, because then we'll riot.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So,
yeah.
The only other game I can mention that I can think of right now at the PC Gaming Show might be Super Giants game Pyre, which is well, I mean, they've made Bastion, they made Transistor, and now they have their third game, which is really bizarre. It looks kind of like a soccer game, but it's also narrative driven.
Yeah.
And I'm confused, but I mean, listen, Super Giants never messed up, so they're on a good hot streak. Let's keep it up.
Yep. All right, that about sums up our State of Gaming podcast E3 special for 2017, and hope you enjoyed it. And we'll definitely be back for a post E3 discussion to see how wrong and stupid we all are. And yeah, until then,